Top 5 People Yul Brynner hated the most in life. Yul Brynner was not just a talented actor, he was a phenomenon, a mighty force of nature, born in the distant land of Vladivostok, Russia, forged through countless adventurous challenges and the harsh hardships of life. From a wandering boy in circus troupes in Paris to a Broadway and Hollywood star, Brynner conquered the world with his talent and unique appearance, but behind that enchanting facade, there hid a storm of emotions, bitterness from a shattered childhood, deep-seated insecurities that fueled countless rivalries, and an intense desire for control that alienated even his closest colleagues. In this video, we will count down from number 5 to the explosive number 1, interspersed with in-depth analyses from film historians, accounts from colleagues, and even from Brynner's own family members. Stay with me as we gradually unravel the mystery of a man who conquered Broadway with over 4,625 performances of The King and I, won an Oscar for his iconic role, but struggled endlessly to conquer the demons in his soul. And remember, if this video evokes even one or two beautiful memories from the past, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends, so we can together preserve the stories from Tinseltown, the city of dreams and tragedies. Now, let's begin our journey. First, let's take a moment to revisit Yul Brynner, the man who became an icon with his shiny, bald head and deep, authoritative voice. Born in 1920 in Vladivostok, Russia, with the birth name Yul Brynner, he grew up in a complicated family where his parents, Boris and Marusia, represented two different worlds. His father was a mining engineer with Swiss-Mongolian blood, his mother a Russian singer of Jewish descent. Brynner's life from childhood was full of upheaval, migrating from Russia to China, then France, joining a gypsy troupe, working as a circus artist, even breaking 49 bones in a horrific accident. Arriving in America in 1940, he started his career as a radio host, then gradually conquered Broadway and Hollywood. But it was those experiences that shaped a man full of contradictions, outstanding talent but a dictatorial personality. Charming, but quick to anger. As Charlton Heston once remarked, Yul's work was superior, but his temper was truly legendary. And now, let's step into our list. Starting the countdown with number 5, Boris Brynner, Yul's own father. Oh, the pain from family betrayal. That's a story as old as human history itself, isn't it? Dear viewers, born as Yul Brynner in Vladivostok, Russia, on July 11, 1920, the tender world of young Yul shattered very early. His father, Boris Brynner, a mining engineer of Swiss-Mongolian origin with a wandering, adventurous spirit, abandoned the family when Yul was only 3 years old. Boris had fallen in love with another woman during a long business trip and decided never to return, leaving Yul, his mother Marusia, and sister Vera to fend for themselves amid the chaos of post-Bolshevik Revolution Russia. That was in 1923 when the world was changing rapidly, and the Brynner family faced poverty, migration, and isolation. Imagine that scene. Dear viewers, a small boy with wide eyes full of wonder and vulnerability, watching his father disappear forever into the distant horizon. As Victoria Brynner, Yul's daughter, revealed in interviews many years after her father's death, this abandonment planted a deep seed of resentment, a hidden scar that Yul carried throughout his life. He rarely mentioned Boris publicly, but when he did, it was always with a thick layer of fabrication, claiming a mysterious Mongolian heritage or weaving strange tales about ancestors to hide the real pain. Experts like biographer Michelangelo Capua, in his famous book Yul Brynner, a biography, pointed out that this early trauma was the foundation for Brynner's iron will. Capua wrote, Brynner's fatherless upbringing forged an iron will, but also created a distrust that permeated every relationship in his life. Indeed, Brynner once said a cryptic line in an interview, "When my father was a king, he was a king who knew exactly what he knew, and his brain was not a thing forever swinging to and fro. Perhaps that was his way of alluding to his father as a distant, unreliable king. From a psychological perspective, Dr. Elaine Ducharme, a clinical psychologist specializing in celebrity trauma, offers deeper insight. Childhood abandonment often leads to serious attachment issues in adulthood. For Brynner, it manifested as fierce independence, but also hostility toward any figure that reminded him of that loss. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? Dear viewers, Yul's mother, Marusia Dmitrievna, a brave and resilient singer, had to flee with the family to Harbin, China, to escape the war, then to Paris, France, in 1932 amid escalating tensions between China and Japan. In Paris, Yul dropped out of school at age 13, joined a wandering gypsy troupe, played guitar to make a living, and even became a trapeze artist in a famous circus, until a terrible fall in 1937 broke 49 of his bones, nearly costing him his life. Those experiences, combined with his hatred for his father, turned Yul into a man full of contradictions. He built a mysterious image about his origins, once joking that there are 10 or 12 stories circulating about my childhood, but privately, the hatred still smoldered. Rock Brynner, Yul's son known by the nickname Rocky, shared in his 2006 memoir Empire and Odyssey that his father carried an unfading bitterness toward Boris, and that deeply affected how he parented us, distant, demanding, but also fiercely protective. This conflict wasn't loud arguments. It was a silent inner rage, a smoldering fire that laid the foundation for all his later battles in his Hollywood career. As we continue this journey, let's pause for a moment to reflect. How many of us, at this age, still carry similar wounds from the past? Family losses, wordless abandonments. Perhaps Brynner's story is not just entertainment, but a reminder to heal those scars before they shape our entire lives. And now, let's move to number 4 on the list. Number 4. Ingrid Bergman, the radiant Swedish star whose grace illuminated countless screens in timeless classics like Casablanca or Notorious. But in 1956, on the set of the film Anastasia, that elegant grace clashed fiercely with Brynner's prickly pride and deep insecurities. Bergman, at 5 feet 9 inches, about 1.75 meters tall, clearly towered over Yul's modest 5 feet 8 inches, 1.73 meters, a small fact that gnawed deeply at his insecurities about his appearance. During a rehearsal, Bergman, always kind and professional, suggested using a small box or platform to balance their heights for close-up scenes, to make the visuals more harmonious. Brynner's reaction, a harsh and insulting retort. "I won't act on a box. I'll show the world what a big horse you are," implying Bergman was tall and clumsy like a horse. Oh my goodness, that jab, mixed with pettiness and selfishness, revealed clearly a man obsessively fixated on his personal image. Bergman, though hurt, maintained her professional demeanor, and later recounted in her autobiography, My Story, co-written with Alan Burgess. Yul was charming one moment, then suddenly difficult the next. His insecurity about his height made the set atmosphere always tense, but we got through it to finish the film. Film historian Jeanine Basinger, in her detailed analysis for the American Film Institute, noted, "This wasn't just surface vanity. It was Brynner's way of asserting dominance in an industry that always valued machismo, strong masculinity." Bergman, who just won an Oscar for her role in Anastasia, represented the European elegance that he deeply envied. From the perspective of behind-the-scenes experts, assistant director Anatol Litvak on the Anastasia set described the atmosphere as electrifying with clashes of enormous egos. Celebrity behavior psychologist Julian Boone adds, Brynner's height complex actually stemmed from his circus days in Paris, where physical strength and appearance were everything for survival. Insulting Bergman was just an instinctive defense mechanism, but it cost him a potential ally in the industry. The film Anastasia ultimately succeeded brilliantly. Earning praise for both stars, Bergman won the Oscar for Best Actress. Brynner was also nominated, but the rift in their relationship remained forever. Bergman later avoided any future collaborations with Brynner, and Yul's reputation for being difficult and quick-tempered began to spread widely in Hollywood. That's truly a poignant reminder. Dear friends, even great legends like Ingrid Bergman faced harsh jabs, teaching us lessons about resilience and forgiveness in the face of unkind behavior from colleagues or friends. As we dig deeper into this journey, let's pause for a moment to reflect on Brynner's meteoric rise in the 1950s. From an unknown immigrant, he became a Broadway sensation with The King and I, where he shaved his head to play King Mongkut, a bold move that not only brought authenticity, but became his immortal personal brand. He performed that role over 4,625 times on stage, won a Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Musical, and then an Oscar for the 1956 film version. But that very success amplified the flaws in his character: selfishness, the need for control, and the fear of being overshadowed. As Charlton Heston, a contemporary and co-star in The Ten Commandments, once remarked, Yul's work was unmatched in excellence, but his temper was truly legendary, sometimes turning the film set into a battlefield. This is the perfect foundation to lead us to number 3 on the list: Kirk Douglas, Hollywood's dimpled warrior with a charming smile, whose rivalry with Brynner over the Spartacus project ignited a real firestorm in film history. In the late 1950s, both stars eyed the legendary story of Spartacus, the gladiator who led a slave revolt against the mighty Roman Empire. Kirk Douglas, through his production company Brynner Productions, secured the rights to adapt Howard Fast's novel and hired the talented director Stanley Kubrick to direct. Meanwhile, Yul Brynner, with no less ambition, developed a direct competing project called The Gladiators, with a script by blacklisted McCarthy-era writer Abraham Polonsky and director Martin Ritt. Brynner not only planned to star as Spartacus, but poured tons of resources into the project to outdo Douglas, turning it into a real Cold War within Hollywood. According to historian Fiona Watson in her book, The Gladiators versus Spartacus, How Hollywood Almost Had Two Slave Revolts, Brynner invested heavily, even scouting locations in Spain and recruiting stars like Jean Moreau. But Douglas's Spartacus version raced ahead at breakneck speed, premiering in 1960 and becoming a massive blockbuster, grossing over $60 million, a huge sum at the time, and winning 4 Oscars. Brynner, furious at being outmaneuvered, completely canceled his The Gladiators project. He publicly criticized Douglas's film as historically inaccurate and a pale copy lacking depth, claiming it stole the thunder from his artistic vision. Douglas, in his memoir The Ragman's Son, retorted sharply, Yul was a great actor, but his ego couldn't handle competition. He saw Spartacus as a direct personal insult. Historian Watson details further, Brynner felt robbed not just of box office revenue, but of a heroic role that mirrored his own defiant and independent spirit, an immigrant who fought to rise. Commentary from film critic Peter Biskind in Easy Rider's Raging Bulls adds, "This was Hollywood's Cold War, 2 alpha males battling fiercely for cinematic legacy." Brynner's cancellation was a rare admission of defeat, and it only fueled his deep hatred for Douglas. From a broader perspective, producer Edward Lewis, who worked closely with Douglas, shared in interviews, Yul once called Kirk that dimpled show-off, but deep down, it was pure envy. Both were immigrants who survived the McCarthy witch hunt era, but they clashed violently over creative control. Emotionally, this conflict touches our hearts. 2 immigrant men, Brynner from Russia, Douglas from Belarus, both chasing the great American dream, only to turn against each other in a turf war. It inspires us to question, at this golden age, do we still hold on to old grudges, or have we learned to let go? Brynner's bitterness here is not just a chapter in his biography, but echoes the pain of abandonment from his father, creating a painful loop he seemed unable to break. Now we come to number 2, Gertrude Lawrence, the elegant and talented British actress who originated the role of Anna Leonovens in the classic Broadway musical The King and I in 1951, starring opposite Brynner as King Mongkut. This production was the great breakthrough that launched Brynner's name internationally. But Lawrence was initially the top-billed star, a fact that gradually eroded his burning ambition. Audiences initially flocked to the theater mainly for Lawrence's fame, with some even throwing shoes at Brynner during previews, leading him to joke bitterly, "It was a perfectly good shoe and still usable. That man must really hate me." Tension between the two simmered from the early days, as Brynner gradually stole the spotlight with his commanding presence and deep voice. Then tragedy struck unexpectedly. In August 1952, Lawrence collapsed backstage after a matinee and died just weeks later from cancer at age 54. Brynner's reaction? Not grief or mourning for the colleague who had guided him through the challenging role, but a silent opportunity. As theater historian Ken Bloom detailed in Show and Tell, the new book of Broadway anecdotes, Brynner was said to have thought immediately, "Now I'll get top billing." And indeed, he did, with the show soaring higher than ever. But at what cost to his soul and reputation? Historian Ethan Morden, in The Happiest Corpse I've Ever Seen, analyzes deeply. Brynner's lack of empathy shocked many. Lawrence wasn't just a co-star. She was his mentor through the role's complexities. But he saw her death as a stepping stone for his personal career. Perspective from colleague Mary Martin, who knew both well, recalled, "Gertrude embodied warmth and professionalism. Yul's cold reaction alienated the entire cast for a long time. Psychologically, Dr. Boone suggests, this is narcissism at work. Brynner prioritized self-interest over shared grief, a trait stemming from his wandering youth and emotional deprivation." It's truly a mysterious story, almost gothic in tone, Broadway's bright lights but hiding dark hearts full of conflict. However, it also inspires us to reflect deeply in this long life. Do we truly rejoice in others' success, or secretly wait for them to fall so we can rise? Brynner's hatred here was subtle, a silent resentment at being second, but it propelled him to top star status. Finally, we reach the dramatic #1 spot, Steve McQueen, the cool rebel with a charming smile and carefree style, whose behind-the-scenes battle with Brynner on the set of The Magnificent Seven in 1960 became an immortal Hollywood legend. This epic Western film assembled 7 legendary gunslingers to protect a Mexican village. But the real showdown was between the two leads, Brynner as Chris Adams, the top star, and McQueen as Vin Tanner, an ambitious rising actor. McQueen, frustrated with his supporting role, constantly provoked Brynner, leading to petty but intense and darkly humorous conflicts. Brynner, always sensitive about his height, built small mounds of dirt to stand taller in shared scenes. McQueen deliberately kicked them over whenever he could. McQueen also fiddled with his hat and guns during Brynner's lines, driving Brynner to rage so much that he hired a personal assistant to count the distractions, once exceeding 50 in a single take. Eli Wallach, a co-star, wrote in his autobiography, The Good, the Bad, and Me. Yul once grabbed Steve in front of everyone, boiling with anger. Steve later said, "I was in my element, he wasn't." McQueen later admitted frankly, "We didn't get along at all," and blamed Brynner's insecurities with horsemanship and gun handling, skills McQueen mastered from his tough childhood. Brynner saw McQueen as a direct threat, a rising star invading his territory. Director John Sturges called it an ego war that nearly derailed the entire film. Film expert Alison Castle, in The Magnificent Seven, The Making of a Classic, notes, Brynner's hatred stemmed from deep fear. McQueen represented the new Hollywood, raw, anti-hero, and full of vitality. From a personal perspective, Rock Brynner revealed that his father went a bit crazy over McQueen, obsessed with being overshadowed on his screen, but in an emotional twist of fate, they reconciled before McQueen's death in 1980 from cancer. Steve confessed on his deathbed, "Yul, we were both fools. This emotional arc, from hatred to regret, is truly profound and human. Dr. Ducharme adds, such rivalries often mask mutual admiration. Brynner's story teaches us about forgiveness in our final years. In conclusion, dear friends, the top 5 hatreds of Yul Brynner, from his own father Boris to rival Steve McQueen, paint a vivid portrait of a complex soul, full of talent but also full of wounds. He was not just an icon of strength and mystery on screen, but a testament to how childhood traumas can shape an entire life. From being abandoned by his father, leading to conflicts with Bergman over height, Douglas over film projects, Lawrence over stage status, and McQueen over ego on set, Brynner always battled himself. But through it all, he left valuable lessons about forgiveness, healing wounds, and how fame can be a double-edged sword. He passed away in 1985 at age 65 from lung cancer, after smoking up to 5 packs a day, leaving a brilliant legacy with immortal roles like in Westworld or The 10 Commandments, but also a warning about the consequences of hatred and addiction. As he said in his posthumous anti-smoking ad, "Now that I'm gone, I tell you, don't smoke, whatever you do." Let his conflicts inspire us, heal old wounds, embrace empathy, and cherish every connection in life, whether with family, friends, or colleagues. At this age, we've seen enough to know that life is too short for hatred. Thank you for joining me on this journey exploring Hollywood's mysteries today. If this video touched your heart, evoking memories of old films, please like, subscribe to the channel for notifications on new videos, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about Yul Brynner's dark side? Do you have any memories of him you'd like to share? Let me know. Until next time, keep those beautiful memories alive in your heart, and wish you a peaceful day full of health. Goodbye, and see you again.